I'm Sandy McTier. I'm excited to share with you today how I paint grapes with a few brushes and a sponge dauber and amazing W oil paints. So let's get started. I've already traced my background on just so that you can see it. There's a pattern in the packet for you. And let's turn that the right way around. We're going to paint the grapes first, get placement, and then we're going to do the leaves, and then we're going to do the background. So let's get started. I have a sponge dauber. We're going to pick a tiny touch of fast dry medium. Now fast dry medium will help your project dry quicker. It will also let that paint go on. It goes on like butter anyway, but it will let it go on even more like butter. It just kind of glides, okay? So we're going to daub that paint on, all right? And we're just going to get our basic shape for our cluster of grapes. Just daub that on. And so I'm pushing and slightly twisting. Push and slightly twist. And right now we're just going for placement of color and the shape of our cluster, okay? So we're gonna leave this one a little bit more on the red side of grapes. So we're going to skip that one, put in our purple down here. Now I did paint along the edges and that's on the pattern, but I'm not going to paint on the edges right now. I'll pick it up and get that paint everywhere. So my grapes will actually flow over the bottom here. But I'm just going to keep it right on the top of the canvas here for now. Okay, so that was dioxazine purple that I picked up on that sponge. And because I picked up the fast dry medium, I'm not going to pick up any more right now. I'm going to pick up a little bit of ultramarine. And you see on my palette how I'm pulling it down away from the main puddle. You're going to load it on that dauber, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm not going to paint every grape, and you're not going to see a difference in that color. It's going to look like the same purple, okay? So the reason I do that is when you go to add in the highlight color, you'll see tones, different tones of that purple, so that's really going to look pretty when we bring in our highlight. So we'll just put a couple on there. All right, and what I'm going to do now is dab this off on my paper towel here. And I'm just slightly pushing and twisting. You don't want to scrub. It'll take that sponge right off. But I'm just going to touch, slightly twist. And now I'm going to pick up a little bit of alizarin crimson, which is this really pretty kind of burgundy maroon color. And I have purple in my sponge. So you're going to have some of that purple come out. And I think it actually looks really pretty. It kind of makes it go with the other purple grapes. So we're just going to push, twist, push, twist. And again, that goes right over the edge, but we're going to leave that unpainted for right now. Get those grapes painted in. So touch, slightly twist, okay? Now, I'm going to put that to the side, and we're going to base in our leaves. And I'm going to use a number, I think this is a number 4 perfect flat here. I'm going to dip it into that medium. You want just a little. Mars black, sap green on your brush. And we're going to mix those colors together to make a really nice dark green color, okay? If you have too much black in your brush, when you go to your piece, you'll just add a little bit more green. You'll see that when you paint it on, okay? So if it's looking like it's a really black leaf, pick up a little bit more sap green, work that in on your palette, make sure you work that medium in as well, and then what you're going to do is you're going to base in the leaves. Okay, so not going for exact. Right now you're just going for color. You're just going to block in all that color. You can kind of keep the shape if you want to with the chisel edge. Just go around that leaf shape, fill it in, and then brush it flat to get that paint on, okay? So we'll go around the edge and then fill it in. And so it's just that basic grape shape. I'm just going to introduce this green in so that we go to do our background color, we can pick up some of that green. Okay. If it's not moving for you, you can pick up a little touch of medium, but not too much. Again, you want to flatten it out with the flat of your brush. Okay, we'll paint these down here. And again, I'm not going for exact. Just for the paint coverage on those leaves. Okay, so see it's starting to drag a bit. So pick that medium up, work it into the Mars Black and Sap Green. See how much easier that moves? Goes on like butter when you have a little bit of that medium in there. Pick up some more paint. And go right over the grapes. Don't be afraid to, if you have a leaf there, just go right over the grapes. If we want to put a grape back over it, we can use our dauber to do so. But sometimes those patterns can kind of hinder your movement in your painting because it has to be half of a leaf. Since only half a leaf's there, just paint the whole thing and then pop a grape right back over it when you have that dauber in your hand. Okay. So let's get these. If you get into that purple, that's quite all right. Sometimes purple in those leaves look really pretty. And again, I'm going to pick up some more leaf paint. Mars Black, Sap Green, work it in. See it's starting to drag a little. Just the tip of your brush into your medium. Come over here and work it in on your palette. And then brush it on. All right. We have a few more down here. This project is actually really, really fast and simple, but people will think that it took you hours to paint it because you're just blocking in that color. The dauber does most of the work on the grapes, and the leaves are fairly simple. It's the shape of a leaf. It's colored like a leaf, and when we highlight the edges, it's going to look just like a grape leaf, okay? We'll get a little one right up in here. And so you'll notice on the finished one, I have clusters of the grapes. They look really dimensional. But we want to do just that first layer, and then as we start coming back in with our other colors, we'll layer more grapes on top. So don't feel like you have to get all that in right now. Again, it's just the grape color, the leaf color. Let's take that one right off the edge. And some of those will spill over when you do the edges. Okay. So now that we have that in, I'm just going to wipe it off on a paper towel. And I'm going to switch to my number 6, Perfect Bright. Okay, we're going to start with the background. So I'm going to dip into a little bit of medium and pick up a little bit of raw sienna. Again, a little bit of medium. And just on that chisel edge, pick up a little bit of raw sienna. And we're going to start right here in this corner at the top because that's kind of where our light's coming from. So I'm going to slip slap on the corner and I'm just going to introduce some of that color into the background there. See how I'm moving around, jumping around. I'm getting into some of that green, and that's good. That's what you want to do actually. And each time you do this, you'll get a little different look depending on how much paint you use, how much you get into that leaf, how much you get into those grapes. Okay, so we've added that raw sienna. And I'm just going to wipe off my brush, pick up a little bit of medium, a little burnt umber. And I want to keep this burnt umber a little bit closer to the bottom, or maybe in areas that I would have a shadow, like right in this cluster of leaves here. Okay, and so see, I'm just kind of dabbing it on with the corner, introducing it to the background. Maybe in areas where you have shadows, pop some of that burnt umber down low. All right, then I'm going to wipe that brush off. And this is where a little bit of magic comes in. Tiny touch of white. Picked up a little bit of medium. Going to work in some white into my brush. And I'm going to come up here, and I don't want to keep all that white up there. It's going to be very light. So what I'll do is hop around, bring some of that white here. I think I have a brush under there. Let's move that. So I'm just going to pop on some of that white. Again, not really exact, just kind of with the corner of my brush. And when we start blending all this out, you'll see all those colors come together. Okay, I'm going to pop my glasses on here so I can see. All right, don't forget these little areas inside your clusters of grapes. Even though we're going to have other grapes on top, we want to make sure that if we have any background colors showing through, we've taken care of it. And then we'll do it on this step so we don't have to do it later. But if you get done and you notice there's a little background that's showing the base color of the canvas, just pop in a little bit of that background color with the corner of your brush. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to wipe off that brush so that we have no paint on it. And all that medium and all that paint that we've just put on, we're going to softly blend it. Okay? So with the flat of my brush, I'm just going to come in here and blend and soften. And I really want to get into the green of the leaf. See how I'm using the corner of that brush? And then I'm going to soften it out. So if it's not moving for you and that green's not moving, just get in there with the corner of it and make it move, okay? And then just soften with the flat of your brush. And the flat, I'm moving my wrist, I'm moving the whole brush back and forth so that it's flat. If you're on the chisel, you will get chisel marks, and we don't want that, okay? So you just want the flat of your brush to soften that out. And I love it when you pick up that purple and you can bring it out here and soften it into the background. Okay, so if it picks it up and you want some over here, just move your brush over. All right. So soften. If you start to pick up a lot of paint, just take your paper towel, get some of that paint off the brush. Let's move that one completely out of the way. So if it starts to get a little muddy on you, just wipe it off, softly brush it out. And so when I was dabbing that on, I was just a little haphazard. Now I'm being a little bit more meticulous in my blending, and I'm using less pressure, okay? So before I had a little bit of pressure pushing on that corner, and now I'm just softly blending all those colors together, and the white is going to tone it all down and give you a really pretty nice marbled look to your background. Okay, so get into those leaves, bring some of that green out, soften it up. Let's go ahead and just get into those grapes too. Any background color that maybe needs to go back there. Okay, we'll get into the red grapes here. Let's pop that down so you can see it. All right, so on the edge here, try not to get too much in the leaf, so you can pop that corner, get right into the leaf, maybe chisel it just a little bit so that it'll move, and then soften it with the flat of the brush. Okay. Let's come in here and soften since we put some of that background color in there. Oh, and it moved some of that red, which is really pretty. Just soften with the flat. Keep moving. If you go over the grapes like I just did there, no worries. You're going to pop them back in with your dauber, okay? All right. So let's give that a look. I've gotten almost all that background color, and depending on how much white you used, will depend on how dark it is. If you want it brighter or lighter, you can add more of that white in there. I'm just going to soften that a bit, and actually I'm going to add a little bit more white to brighten this up. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our dauber. Okay, we're going to wipe off our brush. Just wipe it off on that paper towel, and I'm going to leave it there because we're going to come back and use that. I'm going to go back to the dauber that I had. Remember, the last color we used was the alizarin crimson. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and go to. I'm going to pull some of that alizarin crimson down, and I'm just going to come right back to my grape cluster. And remember, when we first started, we put a little bit of the medium in there, and actually that medium will stay in that sponge. So you shouldn't need any more medium on your paint dauber. Okay, we're just going to pop those on. And then what I'm going to do is I want to pick one side that I can pick a little bit of white up. See how I picked a little bit of white up on that sponge? And now I'm going to run it on my palette back and forth, almost like I was double loading a brush. I just want to change the value on one side of that alizarin crimson. Okay. And I always start at the bottom. I'm going to touch, slightly push, and lift. And my highlighted corner, sometimes I have to look at my dauber to see where that is, but I want to make sure that the highlighted side of my grapes is on the same side. So as you're daubing it, see how I'm just jumping around, you want to make sure that that highlighted side is on the same side. Okay, so I'm going to jump around, and this is where I'm going to start coming in and adding more grapes. Remember, we want it to look dimensional, like a big cluster of juicy grapes. So it can't just be flat with one layer. We're going to start adding more grapes on top in spaces to make it have more dimension. Okay, a little bit more white. And again, if your dauber gets too muddy, just pounce it off on your washcloth or on your paper towel. Get a lot of that paint out of it. So I'm going to touch, slightly twist, touch, slightly twist. Okay, starting to pick up a lot of paint, so I'm just going to touch and slightly twist on my paper towel here. Come back to my white. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and add some more grapes to make it look like a really pretty cluster. And if you find spaces like here, if you touch, slightly twist, and lift, you've just put a grape right on top of 2 or 3 grapes underneath. And that brings those grapes a little bit closer to you. So it's going to look really pretty. A little bit more white. Okay. The next thing I want to do is add a little bit of phthalo yellow green to that white corner. Now, green and red make brown, so we want to try and keep that green on its own corner with that white, okay? So we don't want to have brown grapes. We just want to add a little bit of that green highlight, some of those grapes that haven't fully matured yet. So see how let's pop that on. If it's really green, just go over it again. But you get that nice green kind of glow that almost looks like you can just see the translucency of that grape and see the juice inside. Okay. And these do spill over the edge, so I'm actually going to just pop one over here, make it look like it goes right over the edge and over there, so that when we go to do that, we already have these on there. Okay, but see how we've taken that cluster from flat to being a nice full cluster of grapes. Okay, and I see one blank little area right there that needs something, so I'm just going to pop a grape on with my dauber. Again, push and slightly twist. All right, so now we'll go ahead and take it off on our paper towel. We'll take off that alizarin crimson color, and I'm just touching and slightly twisting. Again, you don't want to scrub. Take that sponge right off. Pick up a little bit of dioxazine purple. I'm just going to come back and daub these. Again, no medium. You have enough medium on that canvas from when we first put the grapes on, and then there's still that medium in your sponge. Okay, and so we'll go ahead and pop down here and do these. Push and slightly twist, push and slightly twist. Okay, so we're going to come over here and we're going to pick up a little bit of white. Again, run it on your palette. Look at your dauber. Make sure that you have one corner that has white. The rest is the dark grape. Okay, and we're going to touch and slightly twist, touch and slightly twist. And I'm going to jump around. I'm going to wipe off some of that excess paint. Remember, if it's feeling like it's just too much paint, wipe it off on your paper towel. Go back and get some white. Then you're going to touch and slightly twist. So I'm not starting here and working 1, 2, 3 very methodically and patterned. I want to jump around so that I end up with no pattern. Just find that's easier for me to do. So if you are a little bit more haphazard in putting these on, you'll end up with a really nice cluster of grapes versus one that looks like a triangle all the way up, okay? A little bit more white, and I wiped it off again on my paper towel. You'll start to pick up a lot of that paint depending on your pressure. So I'm going to push and slightly twist, and I'm painting the initial grapes that I had on there, but it's also putting them on top of others, which is going to give you that dimension. Okay, a little bit more white. And if you get too much white, see how I'm just going to go over it, 3 or 4 times, slightly push and twist, slightly push and twist. You will get a really nice solid round grape there. Okay, now you can also make grapes a little bit more oval, and if you wanted a more oval, you could run your dauber back and forth this way. Okay, make them a little bit more oval. But these are round, pretty, perfect grapes. So we're just gonna let the dauber do its work. Push, slightly twist, push, slightly twist, and lift. Okay, a little bit more white. There we go. So if you get frayed edges around your grapes, loosen up on your pressure just a little bit. And you can do that with the dauber with a lot of paint on it as well. So make sure you're wiping off. And if it's pooling up there, just use less pressure as you push down. Okay, so we're going to pick up a little bit more white, and let's pop down here to the bottom and do this one, since we have that on our paint dauber. So just push and slightly twist. The faster you paint them, the better they're going to look. Get those nice and highlighted. Okay, so you can see they're kind of just in a row, and so we need to add that dimension to it. So we're going to pop a little bit more color on there, a little bit more white, and that's when I'm going to come in right between these four, and I'm going to pop one right there, and now we have dimension to our cluster. Okay, maybe one on that side, right between those four. There we go. Getting a little spongy look to that. Again, probably too much paint. So wipe it off. Soften it out by slightly twisting. Okay. All right. So now we're going to pick up a little bit of green, just like we did on the red grapes. Pick up a little bit of that phthalo yellow green, a little bit of white. We're going to run it back and forth. I'm just going right to the same runway. If you want to, you can move to a different one. Make sure you pick up that white. And sometimes on these daubers, you will get a little paint. Just run your finger along on the edge there, just to make sure that it doesn't get onto your canvas. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put this little highlight of green on. I think this just makes it look a little bit more natural, a little bit more translucent. You can see that juice inside that grape with that green. Pick up a little bit more green. And if you put it on the first time and it's just really green, just pop some white back onto your dauber and go right back over it. There we go. So push and slightly twist. Push and slightly twist. All right. Simple, huh? We'll pop a little green down here, and then we'll move on to our leaves. Okay, so let's put our dauber there. We're going to come back to our 6 perfect flat, and remember we made the Mars Black and Sap Green mix for our leaves. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of medium, so if you do the chisel edge of your brush right into the medium, come back over to your Sap Green and Mars Black, work that in. I want to get my brush based in with this dark color, and I'm going to shape up any leaves I need to shape up. So let me give you a tip though. Remember, we put all that in before we did the background, and sometimes when you got into the bottom of the leaf, you grab some of that green. Those are going to be automatic shadows that I would leave in there. So if I need to fix up my leaf at all, I tend to just do it on the top part, and I leave that bottom edge alone. Okay, so if I've chopped my leaf in half by doing the background, I'll just come on the top, fix that leaf up, but I leave that really, really pretty bleed of green on the edge. Just adds a really nice softness to your painting, and it adds those shadows without you even trying to do so. Okay, a little bit more, just to shape up some of these leaves that you misshaped maybe. Oops, a little bit of black, a little bit of sap green. And remember, if you make enough mixture to begin with, you'll have the same color. But if not, if you pick up too much black on the second go around, just make sure you add a little bit of sap green in there so that when we add our highlight color, you don't end up with black leaves. All right. Okay, so with the brush still based with that color, we're going to add a little bit of phthalo yellow-green. I'm just going to pull it out to the side. We'll bring it down here and work that into our brush. So we have the base of the dark. We have a little bit of the light. We're going to pick up the white, bring it over and work it in. You're going to love how quick and easy and simple these leaves are. Okay? We're going to come from the edge, and I start at the tip, and you're going to pull, and you're going to pull and pull. Now, you can determine how light they are by how much white you put into it. Okay? And if you get too much light and you want to add dark, just go right to your dark paint, work that in, and you're just going to pull from the side, okay? If it's in the shape of a leaf and it's the color of a leaf, we're going to have a leaf, okay? That's a great thing about these really quick and easy, very simple leaves. A little bit more white. I want them a little bit more on the gray side. So I'm going to come in and pull. Make sure you pull stems so it doesn't look like they're just kind of floating out in the middle of nowhere. Pull a stem. So I'm right on the chisel edge, and I'm going to feather in, and you've noticed I haven't added any more paint to my brush. I'm letting it pick up that dark paint, and I'm moving on to the next. I might flip my brush in my hand so I can get some of that fresh light. But what I like about doing it that way is that some of my leaves will have a different tone. They're not all exactly the same color because I've picked up some of that dark. It has the light on there, and as I'm moving, even though it's the same color, the values changed a little bit. So pick up a little bit more light. Maybe on this one needs a brighter highlight. So again, right on the edge of the leaf, pull and let it feather. Ooh, and it picked up that purple, and I love that, so I'm going to leave it. So you're just going to go right from the edge, pull it in. Not all the way. If you go all the way into the center, all you have to do is come back with the dark from the center and pull out, okay? Pick up some more. And again, if you get it too bright, like it's a bit bright there, pick up some of that dark paint on your light brush. And pop that color right on there, okay? So I'm just kind of going with the shape of that leaf from the edge of it, pull in, pull a stem. So I'm pulling a stem with that chisel edge. Not adding any more paint until you feel like you've run out and you need some more of the bright. Pop that on there. Pull a stem with the chisel. Okay, how quick and easy were those? Pretty simple leaves, huh? That was a little on the green side, so I'm going to add some white. There we go. I want that more sagey. Okay, so we're going to wipe that off. We're going to dip into our medium, pick up a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of white, and we're going to use the chisel edge. And I like to just make it look like they're coming from a branch, so not just kind of out there floating. So with the chisel edge of your brush, we're going to just slide the handle of your brush just straight up and down. We're going to move our entire hand. I'm just going to kind of skip those leaves, and I'm going to slide up and paint a little branch. We can do that for areas that you can see here, again, just to give the illusion that they're all coming from someplace. Okay, and maybe down here. So just slide on that chisel edge really light, not putting pressure, not leaning. Handle of that brush just straight up and down, and that'll give you a really nice thin stem instead of a huge branch. Okay, so let's wipe that off. And we're on our last step. We're going to paint those nice little tendrils that you see on grapevines. And I'm using a 0 round. We're going to dip into the fast dry medium. I just dipped the tip of that brush. We'll come over here and pick up some burnt umber. If you just kind of roll that brush around, you don't want to do it like this, we'll ruin those bristles. So if we just kind of roll that around in that paint with the handle of the brush leaning, little tiny touch of white, maybe even a little bit of raw sienna, depending on how golden you want them to look. Okay, and so we're going to handle the brush straight up and down, and if you just start, twirl, circle, and I picked up some of that green. I think it's pretty, so I'm going to leave it. If you don't like it, you might have to go back over it. But going back over these little tendrils is hard to get that exact little loopy loop. So I tend just to leave it, and I liked the color. So I'm gonna add one down here. And we've lost a little bit of the color, so add some white in there. Remember, this is our darkest area down here where we had that burnt umber. So add a little bit more of a lighter color to your tendril down there so that it shows up. Let's see if we can go back over that one. Enough, okay? But look how dimensional, how quick, how fast and easy, and we'll carry that pattern right over on the sides to our leaves, to our stems, to our grapes. And it's a quick, fast, easy project to do with a sponge on the end of a stick, amazing brushes, and even more amazing paint. So if you've not tried the W oils yet, you've got to get them today. And I hope you'll paint this piece and put it in your kitchen or hang it in your dining room or give it as a gift. Thank you so much for joining me.